All right, how we doing today? You guys hear me all right back there? Detroit basketball. I've always wanted to say that. So I finally get that chance, so thank you. I'm really excited to be up here talking to you today. 5 ways to improve your email campaigns, get better results. Now, I do have to apologize. I'm starting off with a lie. As I was flying out here from Denver, I decided to change it up a little bit. So it's actually 4 ways, but the 4th one is really, really important. So I wanted to spend more time on it. So hopefully you guys appreciate that. I'm going to be talking about a lot of cool stuff, at least I think. Anyway, that's why I'm up here talking, so I can hear myself speak. No, I'm just kidding. But if you like what I'm talking about, feel free to tweet it out. Follow me, Johnny Thies, or Email and Acid. How many in here, raise a hand, actually do your email design, coding, and all that stuff? Oh, you poor souls, you poor souls. I bet you kind of feel like this, huh? When you're doing it. So this is the world that I've lived in for the past 8 years. So Email and Acid, we show you what your email looks like before you send it, so that when you do send it, you get the most out of every campaign. If you want to know more about that, I'll be here the rest of the day. Leah's out there with me. We have a booth, so feel free to stop by and talk to us. So real quick, before I jump into what I want to do, I just want to talk about am I up here talking about email? Why is it so important? And the biggest thing is as a marketer, it's your biggest channel for your highest return on investment, more than anything out there. Social, TV, video, display, paid search, all that stuff. It's affordable, and it's somewhat easy to do, I guess, if you think about it. But there's a lot of talk out there, too, about, I'm sure we've all heard it, that email is going away, it's dying. Well, I can tell you that's not true. So MediaPost last year did a study after Black Friday, and email drove 18% of all sales, while social only drove 1% on Black Friday. That's impactful. So email's not going away anymore because it's a one-to-one channel, it's affordable, and it's highly, highly, highly impactful because people want to sign up for it. They opt in. We don't sign up for what commercials we want to see on TV, but email we can, supposedly. Now, one word that you want to take out of here, though, is drove. Okay, that's really, really important. Email is a driver. It's not a conversion tool. It's a driver. So you drive people to where you want them to go. It's a very, very important distinction. And so what I want to talk to you guys now about is how you can do that, how you can improve driving people to where you want them to go. And I'm going to take you through a little bit of a journey, like starting from the beginning all the way to an open, right? So where do you send it? And who do you send it to? And that's the list segmentation. I'm not going to go too big into this because I know a lot of us have heard it. I'm just going to give you some tips and tricks on this. And the phrase that we use at Email Us is be relentless about your relevancy. Millennials, biggest demographic right now. And what we want is information that we want. We signed up for your email address. Give us information that we want that's catered to us. I don't care about other things that don't involve me. Understand me, learn who I am. We expect that now from brands, especially millennials with all the information that we're getting and all that stuff we're getting bombarded, so make sure it's relevant. And this is really critical when we talk about some other stuff, deliverability and all that, which I'm going to get to in a minute. So how do you do that? How do you start out? How do you start out understanding who your subscribers are? And the easy way to do that is survey. We do this all the time. Every year we do a survey. We want to understand what our subscribers are doing, what information they want, and are we doing our jobs? Are we giving them the information that they actually want? Or are we thinking, right? Just like the last session about UX and personas, same type of thing. Understand who your customers are, and they'll give it to you. And once you get that, then cater around to them. Cater it to that. Okay? Another one for like those retailers out there, or even if not even a SaaS, like for us, purchase cycle, cart abandonment. So 67% of all people abandon a cart. Okay, so re-engage with them, be targeted. Amazon does a fantastic job at this. Now you sign up, you add something to your cart, you leave, they'll say, hey, guess what? There's only 5 more items left, or that wish list that they have. They'll give you indications like, hey, they'll give you a sense of urgency and say, hey, this is almost gone. Buy now, buy now. Now, one thing you want to be aware of with this, though, is first-time abandoners, if you don't already have their email address or they haven't already done something, that's where you can get into trouble because of the canned spam and now GDPR. So you have to be careful with that. There are ways that you can work around that. The next one, I think is probably the most important one, is the re-engagement. And this is the one where people sign up for your email list, they start getting them, then they start disengaging. They're not clicking, they're not opening. And this is a great opportunity, like Starbucks did here, is to re-engage, get them back into why, and try to figure out why they left, and get them back into it. Remind them what they're missing. And this is really, really important. And I look at this as a great metric. And the way we do it at EOA is we look at our past history of when someone signed up and when they start becoming disengaged. And we take an average time of that, and we say, okay, well, maybe it's 8 months. And that's the KPI that we use to measure our email marketing. We want that number to go out. We don't want it to go in. And so we're always measuring, is it 8 months? Is it 9 months? Is it 10 months? If it is, if we see that trend, we're doing our jobs. If it starts going the other way, we're failing somewhere. We're missing the boat. We're not understanding what our customers want from us. And this also gets into the next topic about inbox placement. Okay? So disengaged subscribers can have a really big impact on that, and I'll talk about that here in a minute. And so now we know who we're sending it to. Now we actually have to get it delivered and make sure that it gets to the inbox. And before I get into this, I quickly want to define 2 terms that sound very similar, but actually really, really different. And that's delivery versus deliverability. Completely different. We kind of sometimes get those confused. So delivery is actually whether or not the recipient accepts your message. So is it a valid email address? Does it get bounced by the ISP provider like Gmail or Microsoft or Outlook, AOL? Is the mailbox full? It might get rejected. So that's delivery. Whereas deliverability is where the message ends up once it's delivered, once it's received. Does it go into the inbox? Does it go in the spam folder? Or do they have custom rules where they filter it and put it in a different folder? And it's also known as inbox placement. So deliverability and inbox placement are the same thing, but deliverability and delivery are completely different. Okay? And so design, and email design, can have a big impact. Now there's a whole bunch of other stuff that I'm not going to go into, like IP reputation and all that stuff that I'm not going to go into here. I'm just going to focus on the email design side and what you guys have immediate impact on as far as inbox placement. So how many in here are retailers? Okay, very few. Good, because I'm going to call you guys out here. You guys are notoriously known for using all image-based designs, which can definitely have a negative impact on the inbox placement, because what ISPs do is they look at it and they say, okay, there's no content here. What are you trying to hide? What are you doing? And not only on inbox placement, as I get into in a couple minutes, is that this also can have an impact on the experience of once the email is received, okay, from image blocking to a couple other things. Okay, so try to avoid that. So what is the actual right number? So what we did is we have a spam test tool. And so what we did is we ran a whole bunch of tests. We started out just sending all images, and we started adding content bit by bit. And what we found is the right ratio is right around target 500 or more characters. It's not words, it's characters. So here, Skullcandy did a great job. They have, the hero image, and they have some text that complements that image. But 500 characters, you could probably get that just in the footer. So that's not that much. So anything below that, we started seeing a negative impact. Anything above that, we started seeing a positive impact on inbox placement. So roughly right around 500 characters is key. Next one, alternative text. Does this matter anymore? As far as the inbox placement, not really. Because there's not very many email clients that don't support the HTML display of the email. However, from a branding perspective, I would suggest still doing this. And I'll get to that in a couple minutes too, but there's so many free tools out there that will do this quickly and for free for you. It doesn't make sense not to. And from a branding perspective, you don't know, we can't track this, but are those 10 or 50 or 100 subscribers worth the brand image? I say do it because it's so easy to do. Okay. Next one is you want to keep the file size of the email below 100K. Once you get above 100K, which is a massive file size, you're going to start seeing deliverability impacts and as well as an experience impact from a design perspective. Because on mobile devices, they'll actually clip the email and say, do you want to download the remaining content? Now, how do you get to 100K? This doesn't mean like all the images in your email. So if you look at in a Mac, the Finder, or in Windows, the Explorer window, the file size that you can see in there, that's what I'm talking about here. So it doesn't include if you reference images, that stuff doesn't matter as far as the deliverability perspective. Okay. Next one is Bitly. By the way, before I go, does anyone know this font here? All right, well, I'm feeling old. It's Michael Jackson's Bad. I was hoping maybe somebody would know that, but anyway. Bitly is really bad for email. Really, really, really bad. So any link shortener is terrible for email. And the reason is that Bitly is listed on probably every domain blacklist out there because spammers use that. And when ISPs and all that stuff receive your email, they'll scan your email for all the links and URLs that you're referencing, and they'll check that against blacklists. Are spammers using this? And if you're using Bitly, they're always listed, so that will negatively impact. So you look at deliverability as a grade. So when you first send it, you might have an A, and as it goes down through all these checks, it might lower that grade. And once a grade gets to a certain level, spam. Okay, so you want to try to avoid that. And it's really not necessary with email because you have hrefs, you have anchor tags, all this stuff that hide the long URL. It's really only used for spaces like Twitter where you only have 144 characters where you need to do that. So really, really try to avoid Bitly or any link shortener. The next one is not really from a design perspective, I just want to talk about it. It goes back to that re-engagement what I was talking about, is always keep scrubbing. Like what ISPs are doing is they're actually tracking the engagement of your subscribers. So Microsoft and Gmail are actively doing this. So if you send your email blast out to 1 million people, and people, the first receivers of that immediately delete it, they don't actually read it or engage with it, and they can track how long you're reading it for, and you delete it, guess what? Now that other people, they start getting it, they're gonna trigger that and look at the whole experience of that and say, oh, well, these half of the people didn't read it, so we're gonna put it in the spam folder. So what you wanna do is just make sure you're getting people off that list. Like if they're not engaged, if they're not resubscribed, or they're not clicking or opening your email, get them off, because it's negatively impacting your deliverability. Plus, not to mention, most ESPs out there will charge you per email address. So why would you pay for them to be on your list if they're not opening it? Why are you paying for that? It doesn't make sense. We always scrub it. We have automatic filters within our RSP that if they don't open it or engage within 3 email campaigns, they're off. They're going into a different list. And then from that list, we'll start the triggers and have the campaign where we try to actively re-engage them and figure out how we can get them back. And then once they start clicking on that, then we'll put them back into the regular list. Okay? So that's inbox placement. Now, once it's received, what happens? What's the user experience? And this is where I want to quickly talk about the from name, subject line, and pre-header text. So, and I look at these as most mobile email clients give you 3 opportunities to encourage the subscriber to open that email. That's a from name, subject line, and then the pre-header text is below. It's highlighted here. And it's a really great way for you guys to get them to open. And I think there's a lot of missed opportunities here, and that's why I want to kind of talk about this. We get a lot of questions about, okay, so what do we use for the from name? Do we use a company name or a personal name? And I always suggest is use something trustworthy and recognizable. It doesn't matter if it's from a person or from a company. People will start to understand where it's from, like once they start receiving your emails. All I just suggest is that you be consistent with what you're doing. So for us, for all the campaigns that we send out to our entire list, we use email and acid. For transactional emails and very targeted emails, we use a person's name at our company. And now our subscribers start to understand that, so they know if it's from a name, okay, it's very targeted, it's transactional. Now you can do whatever you want, just as long as you're consistent. And you can change it. I'm not saying you can't change it, but if you do, I would definitely A/B test it. Understand, is this change negatively impacting your results? And if it is, then switch it back. You always want to A/B test, but just make sure you stay consistent with that change. Subject line. 35% of all recipients open the email based on subject line alone. It is important, but it's not the end-all be-all, and let me show you why. So Return Path did this report survey. They're actually out there, their sponsor here. And what they did is they had panel data, so people sign up and they allow them to filter their emails, and in doing that, they can see what emails are being received. And so they went and did a study and said, okay, what is the ratio between subject line length versus read rate? And for those in the back, the blue is the average read rate, and the green is the message with the subject line length. And so as you can see up here, the winner is a 61 to 70 characters. Okay? People are opening those more. Now, is that the end-all be-all? I don't know. You tell me. It doesn't seem like it really matters, right? If it did, it would be overwhelmingly in the middle. But what I love about this is look at 0 to 10. No one's doing it, yet it's the 4th highest. So what does that mean about subject line? It doesn't mean shit. Excuse my language. But because this will tell you, look at the blue, it's all over the place. Even like 91 to 100, that's pretty high up there. Okay? And when we talk about the 0 to 10, my gut tells me there's some emojis in there, so I gotta talk about emojis. So brands that use emoji in subject lines saw a 45% increase in unique open rates. One thing I gotta tell you though, again, be relentless about your relevancy. Make sure the emoji matches the subject. Make sure it matches. Like I love the back to school one, the bus. And also make sure you don't overuse it because it could get stale. If you're a brand that constantly uses it, people are, it's that valid, like they're just gonna get disengaged with it. Okay. Now, pre-headers. This is one of those I think is the biggest missed opportunity out there. And it's so easy, and I'll just walk you through it here real quick. How many people have gotten an email where it says, if this email doesn't view correctly, click here in the pre-header text? Happens all the time, okay? And here's just some examples like Real Simple, having trouble viewing this email. IKEA, big brand, they're not utilizing the space, so you have the same pre-header text as the subject. And my favorite one is the last one. I don't know if you guys can see that in the background, but they're actually asking me to unsubscribe in the pre-header text. That one's awesome. So sorry, BeachRide, if anyone's in here from BeachRide, I apologize. But this one's, I was dying laughing when I saw this. It's just a missed opportunity. And guess what? I understand where it comes from. So when I talked about that all image-based design, that's what happened. BeachRiot sent an email out with all images, and what happens is the pre-header text will take your email, strip out all HTML, and take whatever text is left. And so they had an all image design, and this was the only text that was there. It was in the bottom footer. And it's so easy to avoid. And the next thing, and here's an example. Now these slides will be available, so I have a lot of code snippets in here. They will be available, so don't feel like you have to write them all down. It's really easy because what happens is you put this snippet at the top of your email, and all this is hidden. It's hidden when they open the email. But when the pre-header text takes it and strips out all the HTML, that text is remaining. It's really, really easy to do. It has no impact on the design or renderability of your email once it's open. And you also personalize it. You know, you can add personalization to it. So merge tags within an ESP will work here because it's within the email. So here, Dear Mary, and personalization increases open rates by 26%. Okay? Probably one of the best ones I've seen is Pet Care RX. Very recognizable name. I understand who it's from. They personalized the subject. Fenway is the dog's name. And they had fun with it. They had fun with the pre-header text. Now, please don't let me, you guys know that song, right? Who Let Dogs, I don't want to have to sing that up here. Okay. So they had a lot of fun with this, and they did a really good job. Okay. Now, the next one is once it's opened, and this is the most important one. So if you guys take anything away, please take away this section, this remaining piece of my presentation, because it's so important. And it's something that we don't think about enough as marketers, is about accessibility. And accessibility is making sure that people with disabilities or that are using a device to help them don't miss out on key elements or key things within your web page, the landing page, or the email. And it's highly, highly important. And the reason being is that 285 million people are estimated to have a visual impairment. That's 5% of the world's population. And to put that in perspective, there's 325 million people in the United States. And that's just the visual impairment. Okay? And then the United States by 230, so the National Eye Institute came out and said that there's going to be 2.2 million people in America that are going to be blind and 5 million that have a low vision. Now, I know as marketers, we want more data and to take that back, and if doing the right thing isn't enough for you, well, here's a number that I think will have an impact. Is that people with disabilities represent $1 trillion in disposable income. And we've been doing studies, like we have an inspiration thing where we collect emails, we analyze them, and less than 0.0001% of all emails that we receive are ADA compliant. Think about accessibility before they send it. That is a problem, so that's what I want to address. I want to help educate you guys to understand like what it is and how easy it is to do. And it's really, really simple. And disabilities comes in all shapes and sizes. So we're not talking about just visual. There's auditory, there's physical, there's a whole bunch of things. And I'm going to be focusing on the visual, my presentation. And here's just some examples. Dyslexia. This is how people with dyslexia see, read, or print. This is how they see it. Look at that for a couple minutes. I mean, that's crazy. And so this is something to think about as we're doing our emails and as we're doing our landing pages, to think about what the experience is with these people that have dyslexia. Another one is color blindness. This one to me is fascinating. So the main color blindness is not being able to see red, blue, or green. I thought this was impactful. Look at the green apple. Look at the red apple. It looks rotten. If you have the color blindness, you can't see that color. And that's something that we need to think about when we're doing our emails and thinking about this stuff, so that when we're doing it, we take this into account and that we're designing it in the right way. Okay? Another way to think about it is, have you ever tried to navigate your email journey with your weaker hand? So if you're right-handed, have you ever tried to do it with your left hand? If you're left-handed, have you ever tried to do it with your right hand? Just trying to understand the experience that people go through to understand what they would have, like what they would have to go through to do that. Okay? And now we're also talking about a digital world or a mobile world. Over 53% of all emails are open on a mobile device. So I just want to kind of walk you through and talk to you about the experiences that people have with their mobile devices. Okay? And accessibility is not about understanding how users engage with their emails, but how they engage with their devices. How do they interact with it? Has anyone in this room ever taken your device and turned on accessibility before? If not, I definitely suggest doing it. It's highly eye-opening. It's actually a struggle. I was struggling with it. I couldn't understand. I couldn't figure it out. Try it one day. Just if you're bored or whatever, and just try it. Trust me, your mind will be blown. And so Apple has what their accessibility is called VoiceOver, and Android is TalkBack, and they both behave differently. And so what I'm going to do is kind of talk to you about, listen to a couple of examples from Siri and how it reads your email and how impactful pre-header text is. Not only with the images and all that stuff that we talked about in inbox placement, but also with accessibility. So what I'd like you guys to do is close your eyes for a minute, stop typing, stop tweeting, do all that stuff. Close your eyes. Listen to, I'm just going to stop talking here, just listen to what's going around you, and then I'm going to play the next, but keep your eyes closed. And I want you guys to think about what it would be like if you could not see and how you're interacting with this email. Okay? Okay? Not very good. So, and this is the interesting thing. So this is that code up there. Again, I'll have, you guys don't worry about writing it all down, is that this was the pre-header text that it read. And so what it is, it reads very similar to how a pre-header text works. But however, it goes through, and I'll explain this more in a little bit, and it grabs elements from your email and reads those accessibility elements. So now what I want to do is play another example. Again, close your eyes and listen to this next example about and how we did it with accessibility in mind. So go ahead and close your eyes again and listen to this next one. Sir, could you please make my practice enough? See the difference? So all we did here was we added more content to the pre-header text. And this was an accessibility webinar that we did about a month ago. And as you can see, it read this whole thing. It was beautiful. It didn't go into the accessibility content of it. So this right here reshapes how we even think about pre-header text. And because pre-header text is hidden, we actually suggest now that you use about 490 characters within your pre-header text. You look at the first example, you look at the second one. The second one, completely understandable, and it says, hey, what do you want to do with it? So 490 characters within the pre-header text. And again, no impact on rendering, display, because it's hidden when they open the email. And you need to do it anyway. Okay? Now let's go into the quick wins with accessibility. What is it that we can do to help? Very similar to that pre-header text. And again, there's going to be a lot of code here, so don't feel like you have to write it all down. The slides will be available to everyone after the conference. Okay? The first one, HTML language attribute. It's not used. So what this does is if you set that language attribute, it tells that screen reader and that interpreter what language it is. Is it English, Spanish, French? So you notice like Alex, he's one of my colleagues that's over in England. So his would probably be, what is it, EN-ES or something like that. So you can actually add identifiers to it as well. So it gives that accent and starts to understand what language it's speaking in. Okay? Next one, title tag. We do this with landing pages so that on the browser tab window we can see the title of it. Do the same thing with email. Because what this does is it helps add context to the email and starts adding layers and structure so that the reader will go through and read this stuff. Next one, easy win. So tables, we live, like with email, we live and breathe in the 90s. We have to use tables just because of the support that email clients, and what tables are originally for is kind of like Excel where you have table columns like data tables. Row 1, table row, 10, all that stuff. That's what the intention is. But the way that screen readers will read it is very, very different. I have another example for you here in a minute. But if you add this role equals representation, huge impact. Again, it has no effect. Like all this stuff that's going to have zero impact on how your email is rendered and how it's displayed. So again, I'd like to take you a minute, and when you think about this table, take a minute, close your eyes. I have another example for you that I want to play, just so you guys can have an idea of the difference that just adding this one thing can add. So go ahead and close your eyes for a minute and listen to the following example.
Level 1. This is not very accessible. You are currently on heading level 1 inside of the cell. Blank. You are currently on you may really use this research. This is not much accessible.
See that? So it cut down just by having that one attribute, cut that reader down by a third and having to read that content. So without it, it goes through each table and starts talking about the structure of it. But with the role representation, it gets just to the data. And think about with email, like how many tables and how much structure we use to get it to design properly, like nested tables and all this stuff. So think about how long that would take that reader to go through an entire email. And how long someone would have to listen to that and filter through what's the content, what's not. And just by adding this role equals representation, huge impact. Okay. Image blocking. This is another big one. Now, from a design perspective, again, with image blocked, M&M's here, beautiful email. They didn't do so well in the image blocking. There's no alternative text on that. So for the visual side of it, this is not good because I don't know what the main call to action is. And again, this comes back to all image-based designs. Like if you're going to do that, there's things that you need to do to make sure, one, if you can see, but then two, also the accessibility side. And all we need to do is just add the alt tag to it, that image. No impact on it. Now the key point here that I want to point out for accessibility is that no matter what, any image that you have needs to have an alt tag attribute. And it needs to be blank. Like if it's a spacer GIF or something that has an image that has already content that's wrapped around that already describes what that picture is going through or is referencing, have alt and have it blank. Because the interesting thing is you heard it in the Siri thing, is that it will actually take it and will read the source. If there's no alt tag, it will read the source of it, http://www.emonacid. Right? It will start reading that. But if you have that alt tag, it will just, and it's blank, it will just skip right over it. Okay. The next one, I just have a couple more slides, is avoid the title attribute. Same thing as that alt attribute, avoid the title, because what that does, it completely messes up the screen reader. It will jump around all over the place, and there's no order to the content, and it's really, really, really confusing. Next one, keep fonts legible. Minimum size is 14 pixels. And if you're using the light fonts, which are really important, minimum size is 16 pixels. Okay? Because again, you got to think about it, like a lot of these people with these magnifiers and stuff will zoom it out to 200%. 200%. Okay? Avoid light text, because again, if you have that visual impairment, you won't be able to see the gray, the light gray. You won't even be able to see it. It'll be blank. So avoid using that. Use a darker color. I think that the one on the left is CCC, like the hex. Okay? And then links. Keep links always, like I know it's not always the prettiest, but for accessibility, you need to keep them underlined. Because think about it, if I can't see blue, and a link is blue in the email, I won't even know it's a link. There's no distinguishing factor of that it's a link. And so always, always try to keep links underlined. And then maintain a logical reading structure. Make sure that the content doesn't jump all around, that it flows with it. And a good way to do this is use H tags, like header tags, like H1, 2, and 3, to kind of represent the order of the content. Really helps the reader be more organized in what the data is, what the content is of that email. Okay? Avoid centerline text. Again, we like it. But if you have dyslexia, it becomes very, extremely difficult to read it, even more than what the example that we saw. Okay, so try to avoid centerline text. And that's it. That's what I got for it. So hopefully you take the accessibility piece and go help your email campaigns. Thank you.